When Claire was little and wanted my attention while I was doing something else, I would often say the very typical parent phrase, 5 more minutes, sweetie. And I remember one time I was over at a friend's house and enjoying the visiting, whereas Claire at age 4 or 5 was very bored, and she kept coming over and interrupting and wanting something, and I would say, 5 more minutes, sweetie. And I must have said that at least 4 more times to her, when finally she'd had enough, and she exploded, and she was like, your time is not my time. Your 5 minutes is not my 5 minutes. Because time moves differently for people sometimes, right? When we're enjoying an activity or we're busy with a task or we're focused on something else, time seems to move very quickly. And then there are those other times where we are bored or waiting for the next thing, and time just creeps along very slowly. I also think about this with football. Football time is not real life time, right? A football game is supposed to be 60 minutes long with a halftime break. But really, it takes a good 200 or more minutes to play those 60 minutes. Right? Football time does not match real time. Today, we are at the start of Advent, a new season in the church year. And Advent is this time, this season, where we are in between different things that have happened in Jesus' life. We are looking forward to the birth of God in flesh. We're looking forward to the life that Jesus will live for us, the death he will die for us, the resurrection over death and darkness. We are also still waiting for Jesus to return. The word Advent means coming. So we're in this season where we're both remembering the coming of Jesus as a baby, and we're also waiting for the coming of Jesus again, the second coming. And both of our readings from our New Testament talk about this sense of time, of waiting, of time moving differently for different people, and how really God's time is not our time. In Matthew's gospel, Matthew is writing this gospel maybe about 50 years after Jesus had died and was resurrected. And in those several decades, people were waiting for the Son of Man to come back. They thought Jesus was going to come back I guess I can't snap. Anyway, fast. They thought Jesus was going to come back in weeks, months, maybe a couple of years. And here they are waiting and waiting and waiting, and the weeks have turned into years, and the years have turned into decades. And they want to know how long, right? How long until Jesus comes back and the kingdom of God is made here, and we all experience God's abundance and life and the kingdom of God. So these first followers of Jesus are waiting and waiting and waiting. They're experiencing football time. It's taking a lot longer. And God's time, well, that's God's time. And so Matthew remembers something that Jesus taught his disciples about this sense of waiting. Jesus once said, I don't know when I'm going to come back. God knows. God's the only one. Not even Jesus knows. And it will come surprisingly. And there will be 2 in the field, 1 is taken, 1 is left. 2 women grinding their meal to make their daily bread, 1 is taken, 1 is left. People are going to be going about their everyday lives, doing their regular daily tasks, right? Giving in marriage, which is a hopeful thing, having children, which is a hopeful thing. And then suddenly, in the midst of this life, then the Son of Man will come back. And Matthew wrote these words as good news, because what Jesus' followers are not supposed to do is just wait and do nothing. Just wait for the end and do no living in our day-to-day life. Jesus doesn't want us so focused on trying to figure out with decoder rings when that second coming will happen that we've forgotten to do the work that Jesus has given us to do, to take care of each other and to be Christ's hands and feet in this world. And I just want to, I'm going to go on like a little tangent, because sometimes knowing the Greek is cool. But in this passage, when Jesus is talking about 1 taken and 1 left behind, sometimes we Christians have these ideas that this is going to be like the rapture, and it's going to look a lot like those books in the 90s, the Left Behind series, or those movies, right? And all the good righteous people are going to float up into heaven, and all the rest of us unrighteous folk are going to be living in hell, that God will enact vengeance here in this world. The Greek actually hints at something different. In the Greek, the word that's translated as taken is more like capture or steal. Like Africans were once taken from their homes and their families and moved somewhere else. They were not taken and moved to paradise, right? They were stolen away. And that's what the Greek is in this passage. And the Greek word that is translated here, left behind, in other places in the Bible, is translated as forgiven. So what if the ones left behind are the righteous, are the ones here to do God's work and live in God's kingdom? And we know, I think this is shown because of the example that Jesus gave in this story, the example of Noah. Because when the flood happened, was Noah taken away up into heaven and saved as righteous? No. Where did Noah go? In the ark, right? Noah was left behind. Right? Noah wasn't taken away. Noah was left to do God's work and bring God's kingdom here, or at least attempt. We still kind of messed that one up. But God's intention, right, was for Noah and his family to be left behind to take care of God's creation and God's people. This passage is written to maybe answer the question that Matthew's followers, that many of Jesus's followers have, which is, how do we live faithfully in a world that seems antithetical to God's creation, to God's kingdom? How do we live here and now while we're waiting in hope? And what are we supposed to be doing? In Jesus' time and Matthew's time, Rome occupied Palestine. Rome crucified God's Messiah. And the people were waiting and waiting for Jesus to come back. And then Rome leveled the temple, God's house, as if saying to the Jewish people, you have no faith, no religion here. Your God is powerless against us. And so Matthew was writing, trying to answer this question. When everything in the world is crashing down around you, when it feels like there's nothing but death and darkness happening, how do we live in faith? When there seems like there's no justice that's happening, when people are having their religion or race used against them, where is God in this? What are we to do? There are two responses that we can have to that question. There's the world's way, and there's the way of Advent, this way of waiting in hope. The world's way is that we go to sleep. We go numb. We ignore what's happening around us. We focus just on ourselves and our family and our comfort. Right? Paul talks about that in his letter to the Romans. They were also asking this same question: how do we live faithfully in this in-between time of waiting? And Paul says, we are not to give in to the small gods that want to rule our lives. We are not to give in to drunkenness and debauchery and licentiousness. These words we don't even use anymore. But we are not to give in to numbing our feelings with alcohol, with food that is too fatty, too salty, and too sugary. And by binging on it, it is literally killing our bodies. We are not to sleepwalk through our lives looking for the best Black Friday deal on the latest gadget or designer purse to give us this false sense of happiness, fleeting. Right? We are not to sleep through our lives binging our way. That's the world's way. The way of Advent asks us to hold on to hope, even when things feel dark, and to be actively aware and engaged with the world around us, no matter what. Paul writes to the Romans that we are to cast away the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Because while darkness feels all-encompassing and more powerful than we can ever work against, the tiniest little bit of light dispels all of that. Think of how dark your bedroom is at 3 a.m, and you're wondering what time it is, so you tap your phone, and that little bit of light, right? You can see the outline of your bureaus and your pile of dirty laundry, right? That little light casts so much power over the darkness that it is no longer dark. That is what Paul is encouraging the Romans to remember. That no matter how dark it feels in the world, we each carry God's light within us, given to us at our baptism. And we are called to live into that light and that hope no matter what. Because we're the only ones who can ever battle the world's darkness. Advent is a time that challenges us, to wake us up, to move us away from being numb to the world around us. That challenges us not to lose ourselves in the world's pleasures overspending, overdrinking, overeating, disengaging from everything around us. Advent reminds us to hold on to the light that each one of us has and to shine that into the darkness of the world. And when we do that, we choose that Advent way. We can cast away those works of the darkness and live in the light.